I'm Catalina from Little Spark Films, and we are here with the writer and the director of TAHARA. So, did y'all ladies want to give me a little background? First of all, if you could please introduce yourselves.
Sure. So I'm Olivia. I'm the director of TAHARA.
Hi, and I'm Jess. I'm the writer and one of the producers of the film.
That's wonderful. And can you give us the gist of the film for those who haven't seen it yet?
Oh, right, of course. I'll take it, and then Olivia, you can build off of me. TAHARA is a queer Jewish coming-of-age movie about two best friends who go to a funeral service at their synagogue, their Jewish temple.
And then what inspired y'all to go ahead and tell this specific story? Like, did y'all come up with the idea together, or did one person come up with the idea and the other person kind of like worked on it, or how did that all work out?
Oh, that's a great question. I wrote the script in college. Both Olivia and I attended Northwestern University in Chicago, and I wrote the script throughout my years studying film there. And then when I graduated, I was looking for someone to direct the film, and I had really loved and admired all of the film and art that Olivia had made when we were in college. So I sent the script her way. I actually sent it to the wrong email, thought she passed, found the right email. One of my co-producers, Dasha, found the right email. Then she read it, and then we started talking about what would happen if we made it.
Yeah, and I got to the scene where there's a character that pops a big zit in a mirror, and I was like, okay, I think we should definitely do this. And yeah, now we're here.
Yeah, I think y'all did a really great job of capturing that teenage awkwardness. And I was just like, oh man, I remember feeling this way. And I thought that was really ingenious how you did that. How did you actually achieve that feeling of being able to show that feeling of teen awkwardness that everyone's been through?
I think a lot of it is really in the script, to be honest. Like, there's certain parts in the script where I was cringing just like imagining like the emotional journey that's happening. But then once we got on set, Rachel and Maddie, our two leads who play Hannah and Carrie, like really just made it their own. Avery Ginsberg, who is our costume designer, Claire, who did the makeup, like did a really great job, I think, of placing both of the actors firmly in high school. Like we gave them both middle parts, like we gave Hannah's character a giant zit. They're kind of wearing these clothes that are a little bit ill-fitting. And yeah, I think that all of those things kind of combined like really add to the discomfort of each scene. But I don't know, I was just telling someone today, like I rewatched the film recently, and like some of the scenes still make even me cringe, right? I feel like I have to pause it for a second. And yeah, I think, we also found some of that, I think, in the edit too. Troy did a really good job of like finding some space there and like really training on certain characters to get their full reaction. So I think that's kind of how we did that.
And Jess, did you have anything to say about that? Like,
how did
you achieve that with your writing?
Oh, well, one, I'm very flattered. Thank you so much. And as someone who loves cringy teenage things, I'm glad I can sort of make people feel that way. I think, I really wrote it from a place of what aspects of my own teenagerhood had I never really seen, but was really curious about. But I really would just reiterate what Olivia said. I think Rachel and Maddie, our two leads, really went for it. They played teenagers like teenagers and not teenagers like how the media portrays teenagers. And that sort of synchronicity of like what I was trying to write toward, what Olivia was trying to direct toward, and what they were vulnerable enough to do with us, I think got us to that place. And in addition, it really was, I think the energy on set. We filmed Tahara at my childhood synagogue in Rochester, New York. Like, I think we just had that. I was back in my hometown, and I think everyone sort of went back to their own kind of hometown mindsets. And I think we just let that sort of awkward, uncomfortable energy propel the process. And that really helped it come through to the final film.
It's really, really awesome. And I think that's great that you were able to go back to your childhood and kind of get everyone else there with you as well. That must have been very fun for y'all.
Yeah.
Fun and interesting. Like an adventure.
No, it was really fun. I think it was just like, you know, so much of filmmaking is sort of building the artifice to make it feel real. And we sort of cut right to what was real and ran with it. And that was definitely something that I think is a really crucial part of independent filmmaking. And I was really glad that we got to do that.
Well, that is great. It was incredibly effective. Real fast, we have a question from the audience. Are the characters of the movie reflective of you all? So I guess, did you put any of your past experiences into these characters?
As the writer, yes, definitely. I feel like something I've really thought on is how both Hannah, Carrie, and then Samantha, who is the girl who took her own life and sort of instigated, you know, the events of the film, are sort of these three sort of sections of what I thought of myself as a teenager. You know, like I'm both like the passive friend, the sidekick, but I'm also like the protagonist of my own life, but also nobody understands me, you know? So I think those are all aspects that I've juggled with. And so that's how I am in the film, but I'd love to hear what Olivia thinks.
Yeah, I mean, all the characters also have these like pretty detailed backstories too, that Jess and I worked on kind of throughout, and that I then added onto of like each of the actors that we had on set. With Carrie's character, especially like as someone who was a Black teen, I definitely know what it was like to be like one of the only Black people in a predominantly white space. And so we definitely, I think, honed in on that a lot on set, and talked about that a lot, like when we were building the character. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. That's a good question. Thank you.
Thank you, audience. More questions, please. A quick question that I had was, I thought that your use of animation and stop motion was a very interesting choice. And I wanted to know why you decided to go in that direction, because it was very, very unique.
Yeah, so this one was my fault.
I love it.
No,
I thought it was fun.
no,
And
I'm
the
kidding.
aspect ratio as well, which was fantastic.
Thank you. Yeah, I initially got into film as an animator. That's how I learned how to direct. The first project I ever directed was entirely animated. And yeah, it's kind of like where I learned all of the film basics, like, you know, the shot, reverse shot, like how to do coverage. I learned how to do that as an animator first because you can really do that without needing the big set, without needing other people. And so kind of after that, even when I got into live action, everything I do has these sort of animated elements in it. And so one of the first conversations I had with Jess is being like, what do you think about having some of these sequences be animated? And I remember like you thought for maybe like a second, you were like, cool. Which is like super exciting for me because it kind of just gave me space to, you know, really think about like how we could experiment and expand like throughout these different scenes and like developing people's internal lives via animation. So then I brought on Emily Ann Hoffman, who's like one of my friends, to do the animation, and we kind of collaborated coming up with what type of style we wanted, and eventually landed on this stop motion, which is like these kind of clay puppets that she made by hand. Shout out to her. And this sort of like rotoscoping style that's super beautiful. Yeah.
And Jess, did you like the animation idea? Maybe
Yeah.
a little bit different, or?
No, I loved it. You know, it's interesting. I had this memory come back to me the other day. I workshopped this script in a class, and everybody was like, "This is great, but it's a play," and I was like, "Sure, but it's a movie." And I think one of my favorite parts of collaborating with Olivia was she could really see how it could be a film and how we could use what we have, this sort of ability to really look into these internal worlds and use with these moments of like the animated moments not only our internal life, but they're sort of like moments of desire
Right.
and sort of like very sexually charged, you know, kind of like horny teen moments, not to be brash, but that's sort of like, that's kind of the magic of making it into a movie, is that we can change the media, change the form, and really get to that feeling of like, this is a fantasy.
Mhm.
Because I remember somebody being like, oh, it's a play. And then for those moments, like you would change the lighting. And I was like, no, I don't like that. I hate that.
Oh man, and that was for this specific one, or was it a different script that you
No,
were
it was this
on?
specific script.
Wow.
But somebody was
Wow.
like, oh, what if this was a play? I was like, no, I don't want
Oh, probably because like a lot of times people don't want to just explore. They're scared, I guess, to explore characters just in the one setting. Because I mean,
Yeah.
like you're in the school or your temple the whole time.
Yeah.
But honestly, I thought it was really interesting. You moved around a lot. You were in the main temple area at one point. You were in a classroom at another point. We had the bathroom, of course, that had the amazing color palette that y'all, I guess, worked together to design, and it looked beautiful. Or I don't know if the bathroom just looked like that, and you just
The
like
bathroom looks
it.
like that. But our
It just looks
production
like that.
designer,
That's so cool.
our production designer, Jane Clark, did an amazing job like
Yes.
elevating that to be like, it looks like that, but now it like really looks like that.
Yeah, she went out to yard sales. Shout out
Oh
to
my
her.
God. I
Took
actually
this
have
van around.
the like plant stand from the bathroom like right
Aw,
here.
Yes.
we're getting
I didn't
some
want to return it.
questions too. Yay. So audience question number 1 is, did you have any alternative endings to the film, or did you plan for it to stick strictly to the first script idea?
I never wanted to change the ending. That was always the ending. And it's the one thing not everyone's told me to change it. Like a lot of people liked it and stuck with it, but that was always the original idea. And I was very grateful that Olivia didn't want to change it.
Oh, the ending
Yeah.
was great.
Oh, we appreciate it. Yeah, that long walk.
Well, I like it's like everyone learned a lesson, you know, and then like the audience can infer, well, what lesson did they learn?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think occasionally when I was like screening it with friends, I would get some pushback on how long that shot is, or like, you know, people wanted to put the credits over it or whatnot. And I remember Jess is like one of the one people who was like, no,
I
I like
it.
how long it is. Because what it did for me is I think so often you're watching films, you know, just expecting this constant rush of entertainment. And this is a moment in the film, and there are several moments like this. So this is like the final moment where you really get a chance to think for yourself and like process everything that you've seen. And I really like that about it. So I'm glad we kept it.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I feel like if you, as someone who's watched watched the movie so many times and read the script, but as someone who's watched the movie a lot of times, you realize that some of the fun of it is how quickly they're talking and how much they're saying, and like the pace of them volleying everything back and forth between the two of them, the two main girls, and sort of the noise of the place they're in on what's supposed to be a quiet day, and landing in the place we land and making everybody sort of, you know, sit with your feelings. That was the point of what the day was supposed to be, was sitting with your feelings and understanding what is uncomfortable about the world. So I love how long the shot is. And I think like a happy ending isn't true to what the experience of having that kind of interaction with a friend is like. And a happy ending is also not true of like the experience of going to such an intense religious service.
Definitely. Next audience question is, I see a lot of the powerful sentences are half sentences and feel improvised. How much of those scenes are written in half sentences and how much was allowing the actors to improvise their awkwardness with their emotions? And then the second part of that is, did you work together on those scenes or did Jess hand off the script and trust?
Ooh, that's a good question.
That is a good question.
Ooh, well, it's interesting. It's kind of a combination of a lot of things. One, our sound recordist on set did a really good job of not letting me cut the sentences off in case I actually did want to use them in the edit. So we actually, for the most part, did record things in totality, like as they were written in the script. But then afterwards, that gave us the leeway where me and Troy, the editor, could go in and cut things down and shorten things and tighten them up, and then have some people, it looks like they're, getting interrupted. And yeah, that sort of experimentation is really fun. But then also, like, Rachel and Maddie definitely did improvise. Like, yeah, Rachel's a working comedian. So often, like, she would come in and say, like, oh, could I try something? And like some of the lines she would come up with just kind of like in getting multiple takes of things. Like there's one line in particular where she's talking about, like, I don't know, like, who's on this, but she said something about like a peanut in a really small bag. And that was just all her. But yeah, that sort of like quick back and forth also was just naturally in the script as well. So it's kind of like, I think the culmination of all of these different people coming together that got things to sound that particular way.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like both Maddie and Rachel are really talented actors and performers and have really good intuition. So they definitely improvised in a way that like was to the script, even if it wasn't the exact line. And like, I definitely did like hand off the script and trust, but I think everyone also, because I was also a producer on the film, I also felt like there was nothing that veered in any direction or anything like that. I also think we all really got on the same page of the tone of the film we were trying to make early, so that when people, improvised, made choices, experimented, it all still felt within the world.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, because before anything, we had the script. I made a pitch deck too, and like sent that out to the cast and crew so everyone could see. There's like a playlist attached. They could like hear sort of the sound and understand like the emotional tone that we were all trying to get on.
That's pretty awesome. And it's wonderful that everybody was, it was so cohesive where everybody was working together. And it sounds like all of your actors as well were invested in wanting to research their characters and kind of like, and become these characters. Then we have more questions. Yay! Jess, do you think the title of TAHARA first, or did that come up while you were writing? Which is perfect, because I had a similar question about TAHARA and was wanting for you to explain it.
This is a fun story. The original title of the film is Tahrim. That's what I sent it as when I sent it to Olivia. Olivia and I were talking, and she was like, she can tell the story herself, but she was like, no one's gonna really be able to pronounce this, and it's gonna become complicated. And then Olivia's roommate, who's also Jewish, suggested that we use Tahara. And that ended up being, I think, not only, it's such a beautiful word and such a beautiful title, but it's also thematically such a great fit. So it sort of felt really like it all sort of happened in a great way, but it was sort of a thing where we were like, oh, we should rename the film.
Yeah, I mean, also, I don't know if you want to talk about like the meaning too. But yeah, this is coming on the heels of, I had made a film called Pangea, and people misspelled it all the time. It was really, we had a lot of pangas. It was really hard for people to like Google it and find it. And this is a story that I was like, well, maybe we can keep it in culture, but give people a little bit of help. they can just find us.
Yeah, definitely.
And we have more question. Is Hannah the real closeted one?
Ooh.
Oh, I haven't had that question yet. Olivia, has anyone asked you that?
No, they haven't. That's a good one.
I mean, does Hannah even know? Because I'm not really sure like what their ages are, because they keep on talking about prom, so I guess they're about 17, 18-ish.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I wasn't really sure if maybe that was the next part of the story, would be trying to figure Hannah going separately and trying to figure out exactly, well, you know, what is going on, because obviously she was dealing with a lot of emotional distress there the entire film.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, that's a really good question. I think we kind of talked about this a lot, like in the writing. We like wrote out these like really carefully plotted like character arcs for each person. And with Hannah, like, correct me if I'm wrong too, but like, I think the journey is long with her, where this is someone who works via distraction. So, you know, this day is one that should be about internal reflection, about her kind of coming to terms with like a sort of loss and grief, and her own how her own unkindness, you know, could have, you know, aided to this tragedy. And instead, here she is off on this whole other thing. So this is someone who, I mean, maybe will go their entire lives without really investigating that part of themselves. So I don't know. It's interesting. I think closeting is an interesting term outside of that too, because I think someone like Carrie is a lot more invested in that honesty, that vulnerability, and straight talk. Like when she has that scene where she, you know, has to leave the classroom. I think she's on a path where she's going to be able to find herself and explore these like other sides of herself, and maybe Hannah's not.
Another question is, loved the mirror scenes. What challenges did they present to shoot?
Those things are fun. Yeah, it's interesting because I'd started already talking to our brilliant cinematographer Tequila de Castro, I think, at that point, and we had shot listed, and I'd started storyboarding completely differently than what we ended up shooting, because then I ended up seeing the auditions come in for Hannah's character, which I saw Rachel's audition in particular, and it was just, I don't know if you've seen like an audition tape, but it's pretty much just like this Zoom call where it's like about, you know, a close-up shot, they're talking at the camera. And something about that was just so intriguing to me, like not cutting away and just staying on her face for the entire monologue. So we decided to shoot it that way. And in terms of camera work, it didn't present too many issues, again, because Tequila's a genius, but also there actually was a small issue with the zit itself. I had our poor production designer off to the side, like making the zit juice that goes and bursts out onto the mirror. And we couldn't get it to land just right. So we had like a small spattering that kind of came out of pus. But then in the end, we had a VFX artist, Pim, come in and add like the final pus that you see today. So yeah, good question.
Man, let's see. I was going to. It reminded me of one of my questions, but then I got lost. That's what it was. It was the framing was really, really interesting, and I felt that it lent itself a lot to this feeling of isolation, because it was so like everything was so tight. And it was a very interesting interpretation to have it be that way. Whereas a lot of times you see, like in films, you have big, big spaces and like but it loses the human connection sometimes. And I thought it was I like how you kept it so close.
Thank you. Yeah, I really was inspired by Instagram, to be honest. Like, I just seen all these teams in like square boxes on Instagram. And I remember I brought it to Jess. Oh, go ahead. Oh, well, I brought it to Jess and it's like, what do you think about this? And you're kind of like, okay, well, we'll see how it goes. Because there's not that many films that are shot that way. And so as I started interviewing cinematographers, Tahila was one of the few people who was like, oh, no, this is exactly how it should be shot. And she had all these ideas for it. And in the end, it ended up suiting us really well because, you know, with the budget that we had, we were able to fit everything on frame and like, you know, frame the actors really well with the lighting that we had, with the resources that we had. And I was just thinking about, and I think we were talking about this over text, but in, you know, this sort of pandemic, post-pandemic world that we're going to be in with shooting, scaling the frame size down, I think is actually a really good idea, you know, so that you can have less people on set and not really know it, you know, so that you can sort of, I think, navigate a little bit better socially distant. But you're right, it does, I think, also lend itself to the feelings in the script pretty well too.
It's perfect because I had another question specifically about why you chose the aspect ratio, and then you just answered it. So yay! It's a very unique aspect ratio, and I was like, oh, this is interesting. I wonder if it's going to be the whole movie. And I'm like, oh, that's really cool. I like that because I mean, yeah, the phone, the Instagram, it makes sense. More audience questions. How long was your shoot?
15 days.
Yeah, it's just really tough. But yeah, well, no, we had a couple breaks. We went to Niagara Falls at some point.
Oh yeah, we had 15 days. I see the second question, not to get ahead, that says, is the location still an active synagogue? Which it is. So we weren't allowed to film on Shabbat. So that's after 5 p.m. on Friday and no filming. We shot for 15 days, but no Saturdays and no late nights on Friday. And there was Sunday school on Sunday. So we sort of had to go navigate around that. And yes, we went to Niagara Falls. I was thinking about that trip today. I don't know why. And we also had time to explore Rochester, which was really fun.
Yeah, and that was a really fun part because I'd never been there before shooting this. So I think kind of getting acclimated there was a really nice time.
Did y'all do that as a casting crew?
Yeah.
Yeah. Got to see fun. Like local, yeah. Like Jane got to go to like the local thrift shops with Avery, yard sales, that sort of stuff. But the synagogue was also just super generous in letting us shoot there as long as we did. Like there was construction going on, so they were letting us like go around the construction workers. And yeah, we had even the cantor from the synagogue like helped us out and gave us some script notes. Yeah, super generous.
For the synagogue scene, or for the funeral scenes, the larger funeral scenes, did y'all use any friends and family, or was everybody actors?
So, you know, we posted in local Facebook groups and we did some email reach out, but I did have some friends from high school come and act as extras. I mean, I had to post my high school Facebook group, which is definitely a trip. Glad I didn't leave. Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a mix of people. And, you know, sort of going back to what Olivia said about the aspect ratio, it was really hard for us to find the amount of extras that we wanted, especially because the synagogue was under construction. So we weren't totally sure what the schedule was going to be. So we didn't have enough like lead up time to like really get a huge group of people. But because it was, you know, framed as one-to-one as a square, we could really just like help fill it out and make it look a little more full and a little more just like active, which was really helpful.
Yeah, and shout out to our crew as well, because honestly, in a lot of the larger shots with more people, like there's one shot where I think almost our entire crew is in it, including our cinematographer. um, so yeah, we just kind of would shift people around to fill things out. Yeah.
And question from the audience is, the zit scene sticks out in my mind. What compelled you to have her actually pop a zit on screen, and why? Is there a significance to this scene?
I'll start from the beginning and then we'll go to Olivia, I guess. When I wrote this scene was sort of the beginning of the pimple popping video trend. And I was really like, I actually can't watch the videos. That's my like little secret. They're like a little too much for me, but I'm deeply interested in them as like a lifelong pimple popper like person. Like I just am always picking at my face, even though my mom tells me not to. Sorry, mom. And the significance behind writing it, at least, is what Hannah's talking about is whether or not she would kill herself. And she's really just ideating about it. And while she's doing it, like I think she can't really focus on what she's saying because it's such a big concept that she's literally just like picking at her face, a pimple that is like clearly not doing well, but shouldn't be popped. And that energy, I think, is so what I do. Like when I'm anxious or when I'm trying to figure out something bigger than myself, I will like, what do I have control of? Oh, I have control over the things I don't like about myself on my skin. And so that sort of action, I think I'd never really seen. And I thought it would be sort of on trend a little bit because of the pimple popping, but also like really interesting to see someone do that in a movie. I'd never seen that before. So I was very much writing toward that.
Yeah, that was definitely something that attracted me to the script a lot. Yeah, wow. I mean, it's written really well. Like maybe we should post the scene. I'm thinking about it, but yeah, our makeup artist Claire, like really, that was one of the first questions I think we asked her is like, can you make a prosthetic zit? And we needed it to grow over time. So there's like different zits that she had laid out of like, you know, the zit growing, coming to a head, and then the popped version of the zit. And yeah, I also was bad skin, team bad skin in high school. High school, college, literally sometimes to this day. So it meant a lot to me. Yeah, it meant a lot to me to see teens looking how I remembered them, and you know, without, you know, unfiltered, just I don't know, real. And having acne is just kind of part of that. Like, yeah.
Yeah,
this is very much so like a normal female friendship, you know, like guys are always wondering, what do girls do in the bathroom? And it's like, it's really not that glamorous. It's stand around and talk, you know?
Yeah.
So it kind of like was a little bit of insight into that. Okay, I have, is there a particular takeaway you hope people leave with after experiencing the film?
I recently did answer this one, which we hadn't gotten this one before then. And I kind of thought about it for a long time, but eventually I think what I got to is, I think I hope that people really feel seen by this. Like I've been in quarantine, like watching all this TV and these different shows, and like something that's really struck me. I've recently been like binging Michaela Coel's I May Destroy You, which like shout out to her, brilliant. And something that really struck me is like how affirming it can be to watch someone have a terrible time on screen and feel angry for, feel sorry for that person. you know, because oftentimes we'll find like the reason we're feeling angry or sorry for them is because we relate to that experience. And being able to do that can help you kind of turn that empathy back around for yourself. So I hope that people are feeling seen by it. Hope you can have a couple of laughs. Yeah. Jess, I don't know if you had anything to
No,
add.
I mean, I feel the exact same way. I really, I think something Olivia and I have always talked about when we talked about making this film is like wanting to speak to sort of that experience of being in a complicated friendship and of growing up and of sort of figuring out one's sexuality, but not in a way that felt so put on. You know, something I think about is like, shout out to Tahila and Patrick and Leo. The movie is so beautiful, but the characters look so legit, like look so real. And it's like, it's kind of cathartic to watch people like in a aesthetically pleasing way go through something that you might have brushed under the rug. Like going back a little bit, when someone was like, oh, is Hannah really the closeted one? I'm obviously still thinking about that. I think when Olivia and I were drawing out the arcs, I would think about how in my like mind and my universe, I think like Hannah tells the story of this day in college as a joke. Like she sort of like processes all of this as like, oh, I tried to do a crazy thing when I was in high school. I shouldn't have done that. And I think like having evidence to that kind of day is the most powerful thing because it shows two sides of what could be such a like, it's such a catalyst for both of them, both the characters. And I just, that's what I hope people take away, that there's like, there are these days that change your life and they're not like always the big flashy thing, but that doesn't mean they're not like super dramatic or the stakes are like high, you know? It's very like, I like when people can think about sort of the time clock of their lives.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Because I mean, something I think we were really careful to do throughout is, yes, it's a story about teenagers. Yes, there are two teen girls at the center of it, but we treated this with the seriousness of like a film about like a grown, you know, all the films about grown men that we see,
Yeah.
like, you know, from like the color palette we chose, the shooting style we chose, the music that we chose. Like we tried to give the story the respect and the seriousness that it deserves. Because yeah, I think this is a catalyst for both of them. Yeah,
Definitely. The scene with the where they were talking about gaslighting, that was highly emotional to me. I was just like, oh my god, because I kind of feel like, especially since now that we're all getting older and the internet is so amazing and wonderful, and we can kind of look into our own mental health processes and so on and so forth, that a lot of people now are discovering gaslighting and going, oh man, this is something that happened to me when I was younger and I didn't realize it. And then kind of like being able to sit down and look at your past friendships and go, that wasn't cool. And then being able to see it through the lens that y'all brought to it. I thought that it was very accessible, your story.
oh,
Thanks.
thank you.
I actually, let's see, I wanted to write about, all I wrote was subtitles for communication, but it had to do with the fact that they're sitting next to each other and they're, you know, giving each other faces basically, but y'all would put like full-blown subtitles at the bottom. I really liked that because it showed how close they are, which makes the ending all the more interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's certain parts where there's subtitles on one side and not on the other anymore. Yeah, that's sort of like telepathic. Because I mean, I had friends like that, high school, elementary, middle school, where you could just kind of shoot them a look and it could convey this very complicated landscape of emotion, basically. So yeah, that was really fun to put together because we also the way that we shot that one was like individually, I just sat like Rachel and Maddie down and just read through the script and had them emote literally according to what it was supposed to convey. And then had them just kind of freestyle a couple of just faces. And then Troy and I like cut it together. yeah, to what it is now.
Well, it's very, very effective. Like I really enjoyed that you can infer a lot about all of the characters, even the secondary characters, like the other kids in the classroom and so on and so forth. You can infer a lot just by the way everyone is dressed, and you can tell that that y'all did so much work to preparing all of those little details that are so important to the character developments.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we put a work in, like in the beginning with that whiteboard, like mapping each, like literally every character that's on screen has an arc, whether it made it into the film or not. And each actor was informed of that arc and of their backstory, and like, you know, dressed very meticulously. So thank you for noticing.
Yeah, and I was just gonna add, like, I also think that's such a credit and testament to our team. You know, I think everyone really like, and I was very appreciative, and I'm sure Olivia feels the same, really dove into our world, like I said. But I think in that way, because they were so dedicated to telling this story and because they were excited, that energy let us, you know, sort of have the costumes, the production design, the sound recording, every like little piece that really just brought out these characters, and like everyone served a purpose. Like I think we worked to a place of like everyone's work was to uplift and elevate the story we were trying to tell. And I'm so thankful that everyone was so willing to like meet us where we're at, go above and beyond, like, and keep going. I think that's been really just like the most powerful thing.
Definitely. I think that you can for sure tell. And thank you so much for spending time with us and explaining to us and telling us more about your creative processes, because it's a very, very enjoyable film. And I agree also that it is incredibly easy to fall into feeling for all of these characters, which is great, because I think it's difficult to make characters that you do identify with on some level or another. So what do y'all have coming up next for you?
That's a good question.
I start school in a week.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I'm an MFA at USC in video game college in the interactive media and games division at USC. So I'm excited to do that. Got another feature I'm looking to put together right now. Jess, what are you up to?
What am I up to? Well, I'm trying to get this film distributed, and Olivia's up to that too. And what else? I'm also working on another feature, and the film itself is playing as part of Outfest. So support this festival. And then if you want to support another amazing festival, Outfest out in LA, virtually though this time, it's going to start, I think, in a week or so. And we're so thrilled to be part of that. And, you know, that's sort of what I'm up to, just trying to get this film out to people and work on my own stuff. And I told Olivia before this call, I'm getting really into gardening. So that's, I've got a lot of plants to take care of.
Yeah. So yeah, support the film, spread the word.
Yeah, if you liked it, just let people know. And we have an Instagram, TAHARA the Film on Instagram, and we also have an email, taharathefilm@gmail.com. So feel free to send us a note. We would love to hear what you think, and anything, you know, really.
Yeah, those really make our day.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll be sure to check out the Instagram, TAHARA the Film. And then we will be on the lookout for more work from y'all. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Right, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh, are we supposed to go?
Should we go? Oh,
I think we.
Okay, then we'll go. Bye, everybody.
Okay, bye.